Tired of everyone telling you to find your passion, but no one telling you how? Welcome to the Korean Connection, and I'm your host, Korean, an attorney with a passion for empowering others to use their many talents and skills towards a path of self-discovery and alignment. Join me as I share my personal stories, professional insights, and practical tips, and how you can connect the dots between what you're great at and turning your passions into purpose. Let's connect. Push it to the left, I can't go no more. Make it like no, I'm coming back home. I'm trying to roll on my own. I'ma be the greatest, write my name in the stone. Write my name in the stone. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Write my name in the stone. Cause I'm coming back home. Cause I'm coming back home. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Korean Connection. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about relationship burnout versus self-care. And this topic is has been sort of on my heart for quite some time because I've been having a lot of conversations lately with a lot of my single friends about relationships. We are taught from an early age that finding love will complete us. But what if this search for love is actually burning us out and preventing us from having the most important relationship that we need to have, which is the relationship with self? One of the reasons why this subject is really important to me, I find as though, we put so much emphasis on just finding your soulmate, finding the one, finding your partner, finding the person who completes you, finding, you feel as though your life can't be complete until you're ending it with someone next to you. But no one talks about the burnout that comes with relationship. Nobody talks about the burnout that comes for this eternal search for love. And then when you do find love, a lot of times it's short-lived, right? And guys, I have been in relationships since I was 14 years old. I'm friggin' exhausted. I'm exhausted. And throughout those relationships, and for me, I tend to be in very long-term relationships. I just give relationship vibe for whatever reason. Even if I'm trying to be single, even if I'm trying to do the dating thing, even if I'm trying to be, this one over here and then, take me out on this date and I'm going to try to keep it light. I don't know how to keep relationships light. I always end up tied down or, betrothed to someone. And, like I said, I've been in relationships since I was 14 years old. And, my high school sweetheart, we were together for 5 years until my freshman year in college or sophomore year in college, and I was engaged. And then we broke up, and then I was with another my college boyfriend until I graduated college, and then, and so forth, marriage and breakups, and it's a lot, and it is draining. And nobody talks about that part because it's like there's this sort of stigma that comes with being single. It's sort of like, well, why? There's always a question to follow, especially if you're, a great person or, whatever. There's this question of, well, why haven't somebody snatched you up yet? What is wrong with you while you're single? And why aren't you in a relationship? Why are you single for so long? And it forces you to sort of self-reflect and come from a place as though, well, geez, what is wrong with me? Why am I not in a relationship? And so as a woman, you find yourself for the majority portion of your life just feeling like you have to be coupled up with somebody. That if you're not in a relationship, if when you're a teenager, the thing is to have a little boyfriend. And, your little boyfriend, how long you been with your little boyfriend. And, it got to turn into years. And, and as you get into adulthood, you just kind of like roll over from teenage love into adult love, into middle-age love, into old people love. Like, oh my God, sometimes you just want to love on yourself. And I think that just get lost so much when you're in a relationship. And nobody talks about how you lose so much of yourself when you're in them, right? You spend so much time being in a relationship just trying to make trying to be happy. And I think that's like also a big misconception, when you're in a relationship. It's almost as though you're supposed to be happy all the time. Like the relationship is supposed to bring you happiness. But who you are before the relationship is who you're going to be in the relationship. And nobody really talks about it. If you're not happy before, you're not going to be happy in it, because you're essentially looking for someone to bring the happiness to you, right? And, relationships can be kind of dangerous, right? Because when you meet someone new, oh my God, it's like you turn into Cinderella. You turn into like this ultimate princess where you just want, it's like you want to just bask in the glow of love every day. And it makes you feel so good. And you're meeting someone new and they stir up this sense of excitement in you. And you're like, oh my God, I wish this can last forever. And it lasts for quite some time, a month to, for most people, they say the honeymoon phase is what? 6 months. You're on cloud nine. You're experiencing bliss. I mean, when you find someone new, you're dating someone new, and they're showing you all the wonderful things about them, and they're wining and dining you and treating you delicate and treating you with the utmost care, and they're calling all the time because there's a genuine interest, and you're excited to be around each other, and the butterflies and the flutters, and it feels amazing. You literally feel like you're on, you can conquer the world just on love, just on the emotion of love. You're not talking about whether or not this person is actually going to be supporting your dreams. You're not talking about whether or not this person has emotional security to be in something long term, or emotional intelligence to be able to have deep and substantive conversations. You're not talking about whether or not they have children on the side and you're dealing with baby mama problems. You're not talking about the mama that hates you, that don't want you for her son. You're not or daughter. You're not talking about all those other things. You've seen the end goal. You've seen the white picket fence. You've seen the white dress. You've seen the marriage. You see the kids. You see the whole life just off of the feeling of love. A feeling that is fleeting because it's not sustainable. Like that 6-month period, you're going to spend your entire relationship trying to get back to what you felt during that first 6 months. And oftentimes you never really get there for so many different reasons. Those reasons are, you as a person, you're changing. You don't stay the same in relationships. And as time passed, and you change as a person, that's something that you have to get to not only get to know yourself in this new person that you're turning into, your partner get to know you. They're relying on this past you, who you used to be. It prevents you from feeling as though you can grow from who you was to like who you're maturing into. That person now have to adapt. I mean, it is a lot, guys, to be in relationships. And people don't talk enough about all the burnout that you feel while you're in a relationship. You're talking about having to just consider someone all the time. You're talking about having to, a lot of times, and I know we've probably all heard this before, where, you kind of get into a new relationship and they're like, damn girl, I haven't even seen you or heard from you. And you feel like, they're telling like, oh, they feel like you've lost yourself in a relationship. How often have we all heard that? How often have you realized that after the fact, right? Sometimes once the blinders are off and the relationship is either failing or has failed, now you can see everything clearly and see how, damn, I really didn't hang out with my friends all summer. Damn, I haven't been calling people back. I haven't been intentional with the relationships that I have that sort of help to foster me and help me to keep me centered throughout my daily life. I've sort of just kind of got swept off my feet in this feeling of love, forgetting who you are, forgetting who you are to other people, forgetting your needs, your wants, because now everything is sort of like we this, we that, we go here together. And, now that social media is even becomes a part of your relationship, because social media is like the third person in the relationship. It's like if you're not acknowledging their presence in the relationship, it's like, does it even exist? If you're in a relationship and it's not on social media, are you even in a relationship, right? And so you have to have this sort of constant need to even prove your relationship. Is it going well? Is it going good? You can't even like a meme and post a meme that has nothing to do with relationship, because once you're in the relationship, if you post something about depression, they're like, damn, but what's going on with her? What's happening over there? And so you're sort of in this constant place of having to show that everything is going great and, your relationship is still intact. It's a lot of pressure to think about all the little nuances that relationship bring. But we spend our whole life searching for this. We spend our whole life searching for the love. I don't think we're searching for all the problems and all the complications that come with love, but it comes with it. But you spend your time searching for this. And, again, going back to what we're talking about, you end up losing yourself in a relationship. Man, I'm trying to think about, I can't even think about the various versions of who I was from being in a relationship at 14 to 18, and then being in a relationship from 18 to 22, and then those are such very crucial developmental stages in your life that I'm also trying to figure out who the hell I am. Who am I in college? What do I want to be? Who am I going to be presenting at in this world? And you're wrapped up in a relationship. And, when I think back about even like my college days being in a relationship, I look back at pictures from college days, and like literally 9 out of 10 pictures, I'm literally like this, because my boyfriend at the time was off campus. He went to RIT and I went to SUNY Albany, and so we were on the phone for like probably 90% of my college experience, right? And when you think about that, and I'm just even thinking about that right now, of what that experience was like going through that in my college days. I remember, my partner at the time, my boyfriend at the time, he was an introvert. And so you see me, I'm like a very extrovert, very social person, social butterfly. I make friends everywhere. I want to go out. I want to have fun. I want to laugh. I want to do things. And he was not that. He was a complete introvert, didn't really have too many friends. He kept to himself, very quiet, obviously nerdy guy. And whenever my friends, I'm thinking back even like freshman year, when you're like, you have this newfound freedom. You're not even at home. Nobody can tell you it's bedtime. Nobody can tell you what time you got to wake up for class in the morning. You kind of have this newfound freedom. And my friends are like, they want to go out. And, and I'm like, oh, babe, I'm going to go to the club. And he would be like, can you just stay home tonight and stay with me? And I would stay. And sometimes I wouldn't stay because, what the hell, and I'll just go and do what I got to do and deal with that later. But oftentimes it's like this guilt that come from like even hanging out with my friends. And just sort of like even just thinking about just that time period that I was in, that was a time period for me to like do all the things, right? Explore. And I did, I explore, do all the things, have fun, build friends, build community, get a sense of discipline and routine, and like sort of try to figure out like, who am I going to be in this world? Am I going to be the friend of mine who's just doing, non-responsible things in college? Or, am I going to be the one that's going to be like completely type A and just kind of, or I'm always the person that's going to have balance. Like I'm all about, I want to do all the partying, but I'm not going to be a dummy and get bad grades. You know what I'm saying? Like do the things, but do a balance. Have fun. but do your schoolwork, because at the end of the day, you got to show up for you, and you got to be satisfied with who the outcome, with who you are in the end. So as much as I was, taking the bus every other weekend to Rochester to go and see my boyfriend, and leaving campus, and, coming back for school. And, I'm still coming back. I'm still studying. I'm still trying to get into law school. So I know the grades can't drop beyond, but, so you kind of try to still keep that balance. But oh my God, like, imagine not having to deal with, I mean, I know that's also a part of your experience, fall in love and doing the whole thing. But, when I think back about that experience, even the parts of me, that I'm thinking that I sort of lost out during that experience by just entertaining this long-term relationship. I mean, we were together for like 4 or 5 years, right? It takes a toll, and you don't realize all that you give up for love, right? All the freedoms, all the happiness, all the personal growth that you can experience within yourself. You don't realize that until, you either can look back at it, in retrospect, in hindsight. But, as society, they don't implore you to kind of like think about that before you diving in. And so I want us to kind of think about that today. And I have some not statistics, but some sort of like fun facts that sort of outlines the differences between single and when you're in a relationship. But first, because the episode is about relationship burnout, let's first talk about what relationship burnout is. So one of the things to recognize if you're actually experiencing relationship burnout, you start feeling emotional exhaustion. And that's from constantly trying to make the relationship work that isn't serving you. And guys, I mean, let's just go through the bullet points. You also suffer identity loss. When you've been in girlfriend mode for so long, like, who are you outside of a relationship? When you experience identity loss, it may be a sign of burnout. When you are in a cycle of serial monogamy, that is another thing that can also have you experience relationship burnout, when you're just going from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next, without taking any sort of like intentional pauses to heal from those relationships. You tend to sort of just jump into the next thing and bring those trauma with you. And another thing they talk about is performance fatigue, is that need to constantly impress your partner, or to constantly make your partner happy, or to see you in a positive light. So those are some of the things that cause relationship burnout. And what are some of the impacts of this? It caused decision fatigue from having to constantly manage someone else's emotions, anxiety from being single or running out of time. You can become depressed, and you can have cognitive dissonance, knowing you're unhappy but staying in a relationship anyway. So there's so many negative impacts you can, and that can physically harm your body from like all the stress and anxiety that relationship burnout can cause. And we don't talk about those things. It's just sort of like, oh girl, relationships are just hard. But is it really supposed to be this hard? Is it supposed to cause you all the drain and the emotional baggage, and and that it actually does in actuality? And even good relationships. I'm not even talking about relationships where you're struggling or you're just so unhappy. Even relationships that you could be equally yoked, right? But it's still a person that you have to get to know. They have to know your quirks. You have to get to know them. You still do the performative things, right? Especially in the beginning of the relationship, because you want to show that you add value, or that you are of value, and that you add something to the relationship. You still have to like be ultra considerate. Did you get home? Did you get home? Safely? Did you get to work on time? Did you eat? Did you? Just the constant need to have to consider someone else is sort of draining, even if you're in a successful partnership. And so I thought it was important to sort of just talk about that because we don't talk about that often enough. When you're in a relationship, it's almost supposed to like there's an automatic happy button that you get to press, when oftentimes that's not the case. And we know that's not the case only when they fail. All the things that kind of was going wrong in the relationships in the end, but not during, right? You just sort of expected to endure. So guys, the feedback I normally get from my single friends, when I mention anything relating to like emotional, relationship burnout and, this desire to sort of just be selfish, and perhaps even single, and I have quite a few single friends, and, when you have single friends and you're in a relationship, they're always kind of like, easy for you to say, you're already in a relationship. You have someone to do this with and do that with. And, you don't know what it feels like to like sleep alone at night. And, especially if you've been doing that for quite some time, like you need physical touch. You yearn for physical touch. And I totally get that. But I think, for me, and my response always, like my single friend, like I think because for me, I haven't spent a lot of time in my life being single. I feel like I fantasize about it. Like Tracy Ellis Ross right now, I'm like her biggest fan. Like she just looks so damn happy. She looks so resolved. She looks so blossoming. She looks so self-aware. Like she's just to me in such a good place because she has spent intentionally so much time being single and getting to know who she is as a person and getting to like really pour into herself in terms of like self-love and push and challenge herself to do things on her own that societal wise wouldn't necessarily, comes with a little hesitation. She has this new program now, where she's doing like this solo trips. Like that's literally a dream of mine to take like a solo vacation. Like the thought of just taking a solo vacation seems very scary to me, right? Because it's like, the number one thing for me is the safety component. There's always safety numbers, so I always think about safety. But nowadays, I'm having more and more friends who are just going to Thailand and just going off for like 30 days to go some new country, or more used to the idea of just going to live somewhere else, just going to pick up and just go live in another country. So like I'm like in awe whenever I meet someone or see someone that is just so bold and daring. Like that pulls me, that speaks to me because it's something that I, kind of yearn within myself. I'm also that person that's like a serial monogamist. Like I roll over from and I really do try to stay single. And I'm not even trying to say that like, oh my God, you're so wanted. But for whatever reason, even when I'm talking to someone, even casually, I just do give relationship vibes. And so it just turns into a relationship. And maybe that's something I need to speak to my therapist about being a little bit more intentional and being more strict with certain boundaries if that is really my goal, it shouldn't just kind of shouldn't be falling into a relationship ever. A relationship, especially with all the things that I'm talking about, definitely need to be an intentional decision, right? An intentional decision in recognizing that you were in a space and a place in your life to be in a relationship, to be ready to embark on the work that it takes to be in a relationship. And a lot of times, a lot of self-work has to come before you do that. And unfortunately for me, I didn't allow my time in a lot of my relationships to take that time for myself, to heal, to kind of push past. It's sort of like, next person help you get over the next person, but you don't really recognize like you also bring those traumas and into the next relationship, and then you have to now work with this new person who probably don't deserve them, or maybe this person even trigger some of those traumas, because, like attract like, so there's all these things that kind of goes into when you're trying to be intentional and go into relationships. So I don't think you should ever fall into them. But I tend to find myself like sort of like in relationships. So, but, in sort of like addressing, when I talk to like my single friends, I'm the friend that's like, just go to the movie by yourself, like go to a restaurant, like book a, just do something, like go to book the Broadway play. And, of course, I'm always sort of like, well, this is how you're going to meet somebody, right? You're going to meet somebody if you are in a space by yourself where it's sort of like inviting for someone to come out and talk to you because you're not in a clique of girlfriends or feel very comfortable in the group you're in. I'm always sort of like encouraging alone time, even to meet someone. But I think the point is that though, when you kind of get into a space where you're comfortable with that alone time and you stop the search, you stop the search. Because when you're searching, you're kind of like, you're searching for, coming from a place of deficit, right? And we all know that when you're coming from a place of deficit, you're going to attract something that probably doesn't align totally with your being. You probably will attract something that aligns with what you're currently seeking. So whether it's physical touch, whether it's, whether it's empathy, whether it's whatever it is that you're kind of seeking from the relationship, that's sort of what you're going to kind of gravitate to. So it's sort of like, I kind of have like, it's sort of like, to me, equate to like that 80-20 rule. It's like, the 20 that you're lacking in the whatever the previous relationship or the relationship that you're currently in, the 20 is what you're going to be seeking because you're already feeling full and satisfied from the 80 that you're already receiving. So you're looking and searching for the 20. But when you find the 20, sometimes the 20 is going to be lacking the 80 because you're not focusing on making sure that the 20 has the other 80 that you actually need. So you get the 20, but then you're now deficit in something that you had in 80. And that's really what relationships are, right? You're never going to find someone who is going to be a complete package. You're never going to find someone who's going to complete you. You're never going to find someone who's going to give you the happiness that you're seeking. You have to learn how to be internally happy. You have to learn how to find your happy in whatever things that interest you. Be bold enough to kind of do it. And when I have these conversations with my friends that are single, they simply just don't want to. And, the reasons of, them not wanting to is just because, they don't want to necessarily be alone or, appear to be lonely or, to the outside eye looking in if they're kind of like sitting at a restaurant by themselves. But, like I said, because I'm coming from that space, it just seems so empowering to me to see someone doing that. And I want to implore us to sort of shift our mindset, for the single friends, for the friends that are currently single, or anyone out there that's currently single but wanting to be in a relationship, I would sort of focus on you. If you find you're happy, you are going to attract someone who recognizes that happy in you, right? And probably aligns more with what makes you happy and your interests because you're out just sort of doing what feels natural to you. So you're going to find someone that sort of aligns with your natural inclinations. But, there's always the push from, when I give this sort of advice to my single friends. There's always a push when I give this advice to my single friends. And I get it. It's easy to say it when you're in it, right? It's easy to say it when you're going home and somebody's in your bed at night. It's easy to say it when, you have someone that you can plan the trip with and know that you're going to have someone to sort of just, bounce ideas off of or plan with, And even when I'm thinking about when I was single, right? For those brief moments when I was single and sort of trying to be intentional about remaining single. And I remember those things that would sort of like creep in, right? You do want to, like I'm a lover girl, like I love love. So I'm always going to be gravitating and wanting to be loved and, have love. But I also know that, in those days when I was single and didn't have to consider someone else as much, those are actually also the times where I experienced the most growth in my life. I'm able to focus more on my career. I'm able to focus more on promotions. I'm able to focus more on, things that interest me. I'm able to focus more, and that, on just, my pay attention and just be more self-aware as to, those pauses that you need, or, whatever. Like, I'm just able to focus more on me. And, the minute you get into a relationship, that sort of changes. And I mean, you can definitely, while you're in a relationship, I'm currently in a relationship, And so now, because I'm in a relationship, when I see the signs of relationship burnout, I have to use so much intentionality. And then I have to deal with the drawbacks from exercising that intentionality to maintain my individuality. I have to experience the drawbacks from my partner, who may feel some sense of alienation once I'm starting to pull away to sort of do the things that I kind of want to do by myself. And so, you also have to give your partner that sense of reassurance and all the things that come with that, you're not cheating, whatever. But, when I think about what I think about in those moments and versus the times when I'm in a relationship, there's definitely like a cost analysis that comes with it when you're trying to figure out, like, is it worth it or is it not, And I found some fun facts that I thought that you guys may be interested in, because I think oftentimes we don't focus on these things enough. So some shocking truths that I found. Studies actually show that single, childless women are the happiest and healthiest population subgroup, right? And that is, and when you kind of think about, and let me tell you why. Some of the things that they talk about. Single women do 7 hours less housework per week than married women. Okay, married women do 65% more emotional labor than their partners. And married women perform 2 to 3 times more childcare even when working a full-time job, right? And, and oftentimes the married woman becomes like the default household manager, right? Meanwhile, single women are more likely to pursue promotions and relocations. They have more time for professional development, and they earn more over their lifetime when childless. Now, it kind of goes on. It talks about life expectancy, how single women have lower rates of depression, because, as you can imagine, they have more consistent health patterns. Your emotions aren't so dependent on your partner's emotions. They don't get to drag you into their emotional trauma. You don't have to deal with the anxiety of maintaining the relationship, of losing the relationship. Single women maintain stronger, more diverse friend networks. They have deeper emotional connections with friends. Guys, the list goes on. So, like, if you just kind of look at it from a statistical point of view rather than a societal point of view, convince me again why we spend the majority of our life searching for something that literally will fail your health, literally can make you sick, literally can cause you stress and anxiety and make you die quicker, right? We don't talk about that. And so I think that, as women, we need to spend more time just sort of like embracing who we are. Stop looking outside for what you have inside, what you can find within yourself internally. The person who you are seeking, and this is something that I'm still learning, right, for myself. The person that you are seeking to complete you, they don't exist. They literally only exist inside of you. You know, you have already what you need in order to complete you. If you want someone that's going to be more supportive in terms of providing you with, the inspiration and the discipline that you need, sort of, because that's one thing that I sort of struggle with. I kind of feel like, my partner is supposed to be supposed to like inspire me. I want someone who sort of like, is individually motivated, because I know myself, like I kind of, sometimes I can procrastinate. Sometimes I can, which I'm also learning is not necessarily procrastination. It's just burnout in general. Like when you're burnt out in general, you're not going to find, and that's a whole nother topic that we'll discuss another time. But, sometimes I'm looking for something for my partner to give me some sort of fuel that I feel as though I need in order to carry on. And oftentimes, you're really just not, your partner can do that for you, but you can't sort of like expect it. And sometimes it's not as sustainable. And as you change, you can't expect other people to stay the same, right? Because you have to also recognize in relationship, your partner is changing as well. So find the motivation within yourself to kind of love on yourself a little bit more, to realize that you are dope. You know what? It's one of the other things that I sort of realized in my relationships. One of the things I kind of like search for is support. And then especially, being like, I have 2 children and I'm divorced. So, for a big part of my children's life, I was a single mother. And you sort of don't recognize that, how much that sort of drains you. And I spent a lot of a better part of my relationship, my parenting, being a single parent. But you know what I kind of realized, and I'm sure a lot of women experience this after my divorce. When you would anticipate that, it's going to be so much harder to kind of do this thing by yourself, you kind of realize in that moment that you was doing all the shits anyway, even in the relationship. So like when I tell you that like after my divorce, I didn't feel as though there was more burden on my plate because all the burden was already there. Like the research says, like you're doing 2 to 3 times more of the childcare just by being a married woman or just a mother in a relationship. You're doing all the legwork anyway. So when you're single, and I found myself in a position of being single, it really wasn't that much of a shocker. I was able to just carry on doing all the things. And so what that kind of tells me is the thing that I'm searching for, which is support and, someone to help take things off my plate and give me, you can do it. You have the capacity to do it. You may not want to do it all the time. And obviously, partnership should alleviate that. If you're in a partnership, it should feel like a partnership. If you're in the right partnership, it should feel like a partnership. But oftentimes, we find ourselves in a position where the partnership is still not going to be giving you the thing that you're searching for. And so in my situation, I realized that I don't need someone to motivate me. I don't need someone to give me, I don't need would it be nice to have 2 incomes and have, but I can make the money by myself. Like I have the drive because I have been doing all the things all along. And that's really the lesson. You have everything within you to complete you. This eternal search for a partner is what society tells you that you have to be doing. Be all the, Tracy Ellis Ross out here. Find the love within you. Love on yourself. And trust me, the love that you are seeking will find you when you're already coming from a loving space. The world has sold us this lie, guys, that we are incomplete without a relationship and that our value depends on being chosen by someone else. But here is the truth. When you choose to stay single rather than settle, you're not giving up on love. You're declaring that you love yourself too much to accept less than what you deserve. And every time you walk away from relationship burnout, you're not failing. You're succeeding at protecting your peace. The most radical thing you can do in a world that profits from your insecurity is to genuinely fall in love with your own life. To wake up every day excited about your dreams, to celebrate your wins. And here's a plot twist that nobody tells you. When you build a life so beautiful and so extraordinary, everybody will want to be a part of it. And that's when you become truly powerful, because that's when you stop attracting people who need you and start attracting people who celebrate your expansion. So this week, instead of swiping through all the apps and looking for someone to complete you, instead try losing yourself in yourself. And I challenge you to just take the time to date yourself. Take yourself to that restaurant, book the trip, start that project, and have that adventure. Because the truth is, guys, honestly, the relationship that you have with yourself is the most important one because it is the only one that is guaranteed to last a lifetime. If you like the content for today, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. And join us next time on The Korean Connection. Let's connect. Thank you guys for connecting with me today. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to my channel, The Korean Connection. To connect with me, you can email me at thekoreanconnection@gmail.com. And don't forget that sometimes your passion whispers before it roars. And if you're listening closely, the next episode might be where it gets louder. Let's connect. Push it to the